Number 10. Mildred Pierce. During Amber's testimony, she begins speaking emotionally about the times that Johnny Depp allegedly hit her. At one point in her speech, Amber said that Johnny slapped her and then said, quote, he'd rather cut off his hand. That line in particular is directly out of the movie Mildred Pierce after she slaps another character named Vida. Many people believe that this was a line stolen directly from the 1945 film, a drama about a woman whose husband leaves her for another woman. In this film, there's a scene where Mildred, the mother of two daughters, slaps one of her daughter in the heat of the moment after the daughter is angry that Mildred degraded their social status by not remarrying. After she slaps her daughter, Mildred immediately apologizes and states, quote, I'm so sorry I did that, I'd rather cut off my hand. The lines are definitely similar, but honestly, I can see this one being kind of a stretch given how minuscule and off the cuff it was. Number 9. Notting Hill. Also during Amber's testimony, she spoke about the first time she had met Johnny Depp on the set of their movie. She also describes how the two would fall in love with each other. During this time, Johnny was sober, and to replace his habitual alcohol intake, he drank tea instead. Tons and tons of tea. If you're listening to the trial, the amount of times that she mentions how much he loves tea may have struck you as odd. Many on the internet pointed the similarity to the romantic comedy Notting Hill. It's similar to a line that Julia Roberts says to Hugh Grant about, quote, he drinks lots of tea. Others think the way that she seemed to mimic Julia Roberts in the tea scene may have been done so to make her appear more lovable and believable. Number 8. I am a killer. Also during her testimony, Amber spoke about how Johnny was around another woman and they were all under the influence of different substances at the time. Amber claims that the woman laid her head on Amber's shoulder and it, for some reason, set Johnny off. She went on to allege that Johnny then grabbed this woman's wrist, twisted it, and pulled her towards him. Amber then claims that he said, quote, do you know how many pounds of pressure it takes to break a human wrist? She goes on to say that Johnny held the woman and she was frozen in his grip. Many people have claimed that this line that she claims that he said is actually a line directly from the Netflix series I Am a Killer. The person in the scene says, quote, do you know how much it takes to break a human hand? The series in question documents the life of a woman with a life sentence in prison for taking the life of her husband in extremely brutal and gruesome ways after he broke her hands. Number 7. Shrek 2. Listen, I know this one is definitely most likely total crap, sue me. It's a bit on the satire side, but we all know Reddit. They would psychoanalyze a goldfish if they could. This moment in the trial was kind of similar to a moment in the DreamWorks movie Shrek 2. In the movie itself, Prince Charming is looking around a destroyed room and saying, whoa, what happened here? In a TikTok clip that was posted to Reddit, it quickly clips to Amber, who says the exact same thing and almost the exact same way that Prince Charming does. Listen, if you ask my opinion, there's no way she stole from Shrek 2, let's be real here. It is a little funny though. Number 5. The article. This is something that wasn't stolen from a movie or a book, but it is something that people have pointed out as being blatantly untruthful and in direct contrast to statements that she's made previously in court. Amber claimed during her testimony that prior to her relationship with Johnny, she wasn't a fan of his nor a fan of his art. But fans of Johnny's found an article from years ago. Her claim was directly seen as false. In the article itself, Amber claimed that when she was a teenager, she had photos of Johnny all over her room. A friend of hers had told the Inquirer that Johnny was basically Amber's first love. Quote, when she was a teenager, Amber had already decided to become an actress, and she had pictures of Johnny all over her room. So it's no surprise they fell in love while working together. Amber usually gets what she sets her mind to. Creepy. Number 4. Alpha Dog. In our number 4 spot is the movie Alpha Dog. This one is more of a theory in relation to the trial rather than a direct movie quote, but it's definitely worth noting for a full scope of what is exactly going down. So we have all heard the story of the poo on the bed at this point. If you haven't, it's basically alleged that Amber had left feces on Johnny's bed. While she claims it was her dogs that did so, it's pretty apparent that it belonged to a human. There's a theory that this entire move was a scene from the film Alpha Dog, a movie that Amber herself was in. In the scene, one of the characters, who is under the influence, defecates on his enemy's rug in revenge. It's certainly extremely cinematic, if it is a movie reference. Number 3. Maid. Someone on Twitter pointed out a similarity in Amber's testimony to Maid, when Amber was detailing an alleged instance where Johnny Depp threw a glass at Amber, then punched a wall, and then punched a wall right next to Amber. According to the people who had seen the Netflix show, which is about a woman who is fleeing a horrible relationship to provide a better life for her children, it is said that this scene is actually word for word in the show. While it's definitely possible that real life can absolutely align with television, I think a lot of people are more suspicious than they normally would be given all the examples of Amber seemingly quoting things left, right, and center. Number 2. White chicks. Next up is the comedy White Chicks. During Amber's first day of testimony, she told a horrifying story where she alleged that she had to call Johnny's sister to help remove him from their home. But as they were all driving in the car, Johnny allegedly started howling out the window, grabs Boo, his dog, a teacup Yorkie, and holds Boo out the window of the moving car. He's howling like an animal while holding their dog out of the car. But people seem to think that this scene was taken straight out of the comedy movie White Chicks. In the movie scene, a teacup Yorkie flies out of the window of a moving vehicle and is only being held onto by a leash. But there's also an Instagram photo that has since surfaced of Amber Heard letting the dog out of the car window. I honestly think this one's definitely a stretch, but you know, what do I know, I'm just some rando on the internet. Number 1. The talented Mr. Ripley. I saved this one for last because it seems to be the most credible moment of Amber actually referencing a movie. It is said during Amber Heard's opening statements when she seemed to directly quote the film wherein a man arrives, showers people with gifts, and then seemingly disappears. The quote people are referencing states, quote, "The thing with Dickie, it's like the sun shines on you and it's glorious, and then he forgets you and it's very, very cold. When you have his attention, you feel like you're the only person in the world. That's why everybody loves him so much." Now, Amber didn't directly say these words exactly, but she does say something eerily similar. When describing her attraction towards Johnny, she talks about how when he was with her, Johnny had a warm glow about him, showered her with gifts, and made her feel like the most beautiful woman in the world. They would be in this bubble for 4 to 5 days at a time before it would suddenly disappear and this monster would take its place.
And at number 10, lawyer objects to own question. Easily the most embarrassing moment from one of Heard's lawyers was when he objected to his own question. Attorney Adam Nadelhaft made a huge error while he was asking questions about a fight that left Johnny with a severed finger. While the lawyer was questioning Ben King, Depp's house manager, he asked, quote, "You didn't know what could cause damage to Mr. Depp's hand while you were there on March 8th, correct?" King answered the question by stating a doctor told him that Depp sustained an injury to one of his fingers. Then, in an attempt to stop King from continuing his testimony, the lawyer objected, saying, objection, hearsay? For a moment everyone was confused until the judge stated, quote, "Wait, you asked the question, next question." Awkward. And at number 9, can't do math. One of the funniest moments captured was not actually during the trial, but it was to do with the pre-trial details to be sorted out. The judge was on the stand telling each side how much time they will have in court, stating that once they go over time she'll have to stop them regardless of the line of questioning. At one point she breaks down the exact hours and minutes each side still has in court, and for some reason Amber Heard's lawyers kind of object and make it seem like the math does not add up. The judge then breaks down the math and asks the lawyer if she got a different number. After a very awkward silence, someone comes in and lets the judge know that her math adds up. The caption on the video reads, quote, "Judge Penny Ascard has the patience of an actual saint. Amber Heard legal team failing to do basic math." And at number 8, Milani Cosmetics contradicts Amber's lawyer. During her trial, Amber Heard's lawyer stated that Amber would walk around with makeup constantly in case she ever needed to cover a bruise that Johnny had given her. In court, the lawyer held up Milani Cosmetics all-in-one correcting kit while telling the jury how Heard concealed alleged bruises on her face. Although it's important, the lawyer never claimed that Heard uses that specific product. During the trial, her lawyer held up the makeup and said, quote, "This is what Amber carried in her purse for the entire relationship with Johnny Depp. She's an actor. Do you honestly think she would have left her apartment ever without makeup? Do you think she would ever have wanted other people to see her bruises and cuts? This is what she used. She became very adept to it." Milani clapped back in a TikTok video, showing that the product held up in court was not released until 2017, 1 year after Heard filed for divorce. So there's no way that Heard could have been covering up her bruises with that makeup. A source close to Heard told People, quote, "Heard's lawyer was using an example of the kind of makeup that she used." And at number 7, muffin questioning. During the trial, one of Johnny Depp's witnesses was a psychologist named Dr. Shannon Curry. Dr. Curry's job was to come and testify about the mental state of both of the parties and to determine any psychological issues either party possessed. During her testimony, she stated that Amber had multiple psychological issues and made Amber seem like the abusive party. So to get back at the doctor, Heard's lawyers tried to discredit her. At one point, the lawyers kept asking about was some muffins that Dr. Curry brought to the meeting with Amber. Since Dr. Curry's husband got these muffins, Heard's lawyers wanted to see if Dr. Curry told her husband that a confidential celebrity client, aka Amber, was coming to see her that day. After a long line of useless questioning, Dr. Curry cleared everything up. saying that her husband bought the muffins but he did not know who they were for. The lawyer was stunned and had to take a few moments to come up with a new question. In at number 6, Kate Moss questioning. Last week while Heard was testifying, she was recalling an incident where Johnny allegedly got physical with her sister Whitney, and during the testimony she brought up model Kate Moss, to which Depp's team celebrated. Kate Moss and Depp used to date decades ago when they were both very young, and Heard alleged that Johnny also got physical with Moss while they were together, specifically claimed that he pushed Moss down a flight of stairs. In court, Heard said about her sister's altercation with Johnny in 2015, quote, "She threw herself in the line of fire. She was trying to get Johnny to stop, her back was to the staircase, and Johnny swings at her. I don't hesitate and wait, I instantly think of Kate Moss and stairs." Court footage then showed Depp's lawyers quietly celebrating after Heard mentions Kate Moss. We can assume that the court did not allow evidence or testimony from Moss to be allowed, but now that Heard has opened the door to the altercation, Moss might be asked to testify. Since Johnny clearly does not agree this altercation with Moss happened, Depp's team believes it will once again prove Amber's lies. Halfway number 5, Heard copying Depp's outfits. One strange thing that has been noticed during the trial is that Amber seems to copy Johnny's outfits in court. Dr. Shannon Curry took the witness stand and testified that she diagnosed Amber Heard with 2 personality disorders, one that could cause her to mimic her ex-husband Johnny Depp's wardrobe choices. Dr. Curry claimed that Amber's disorder may cause her to, quote, "take on the identity of the people they are spending time with because it's comforting." This testimony came at an interesting time because fans have been pointing out that Heard seems to copy whatever Depp wears in court. One fan on Twitter wrote, quote, "When Johnny wore a gray suit, the next day she wore the same thing. Then he wore a Gucci ensemble, and then she wore it the next day." If the public noticed this was a pattern, Heard's lawyers should have immediately stepped in and told her to stop wearing them. And at number 4, pathetic attempt to discredit Johnny. During one portion of the trial, Johnny Depp was on the stand and Amber Heard's lawyers could ask him whatever they wanted. At one point, the lawyer tried to make a point about Depp's damaged reputation, giving Depp a number of headlines to read, with them all painting a picture of Depp as out of control. The articles called him in crisis, claimed he was losing money, and also claimed his addiction to drinking was ruining his life. The lawyer read a number of these headlines until Depp himself pointed out that all of these sites are trashy gossip sites and they do not print the truth. Depp even called his line of questioning a, quote, "pathetic attempt." Near the end of the clip, we see Depp start to make fun of these articles, and the lawyers were trying to paint them as real evidence. And at number 3, Depp calls out lawyers for hearsay comments. If you've watched even a little bit of this trial, you know that Amber Heard's lawyers love objecting on the grounds of hearsay. According to Cornell Law School, hearsay is an out-of-court statement offered to prove the truth of whatever it asserts. These statements are inadmissible as trial evidence because there's no actual proof to back them up. Basically, during the entire trial, anything that a person did not say or hear directly is objected to, and it gets a bit annoying after a while. And social media has been mocking her lawyers for the constant objections. While one of her lawyers were telling Depp to read off articles, the lawyer read one title saying, quote, "A year and a month before Amber published the op-ed, headline, Johnny Depp allegedly showed up drunk to movie premiere, reports say." Depp then quickly responded, quote, "Reports say, this is hearsay, is it not? Your favorite word." And at number 2, asked inappropriate questions. Of course it's a lawyer's job to get down to the truth, so it's not out of the question to assume some uncomfortable questions are asked. At one point, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard were living in Australia while Depp was filming a Pirates of the Caribbean movie, and Amber alleged that Depp tried to urinate in the foyer of her house. Depp's bodyguard Malcolm Connolly was on the stand, and during cross-examination, Heard's team asked him if he witnessed Depp urinating in the foyer of their residence at the time. Connolly confirmed he heard noises inside the home and that when he entered, he saw Depp in the foyer. When pushed again to answer, the bodyguard said no, he did not see him try to urinate, prompting those in the courtroom to laugh, including Depp. The lawyer then continued, quote, "Mr. Depp had his out, didn't he?" before being interrupted by an objection. The bodyguard denied it and claimed he would have remembered if he saw it. Depp then tried to contain his laughter. And finally, number 1, stupid objections. I talked before about how Heard's lawyers object to ridiculous things, but this is probably the most insane. So I assume that everyone knows that Johnny Depp's most well-known role is playing Captain Jack Sparrow in Pirates of the Caribbean, but maybe Amber Heard's lawyers did not know that. During a line of questioning, Heard's lawyers were speaking to some sort of studio executive or talent manager, and they were speaking of the 6th movie in the franchise. Depp was set to play the lead role in that movie like he had for the 5 before it, but he was cut from the movie in the midst of the Amber Heard drama. When Depp's lawyers asked the witness what role Depp would play in the 6th movie, Heard's lawyers objected, citing hearsay. Are we surprised? The judge allowed the question, and the answer was none other than Captain Jack Sparrow. Again, are we surprised? Like, we know that's who he plays. And at number 10, Heard looks like she's snorting something. While Amber Heard was on the stand, it was pretty emotional, so she had some tissues nearby to dry her tears if she got emotional. At one point she decided to blow her nose, but she did it in such a strange way that the internet believed she was actually doing something illegal. If you watch the video in slow motion, it looks like Amber uses the tissue to push something into her nose and then she snorts it. It doesn't look like she blows anything into the tissue, which is generally what they're used for. Theories then started brewing that Heard snorted a white substance into her nose, but many felt it was way too much of a stretch. Then a more probable theory started circulating that Amber snorted menthol, which is a common trick that makes actors cry, especially since under the circumstance, crying would help her case in trial. And at number 9, Amber afraid of Johnny Depp. During the shocking trial, the couple have not had any contact. On top of that, the pair also haven't made much eye contact, mostly because Depp refuses to look in Heard's direction. Recently, while Heard was getting off the stand, Johnny was approaching it, and there was an awkward moment where they were about to cross paths. When Heard seemed to notice that it was about to happen, she looked very startled, then walked away from him. Heard looked like she was physically shrinking and terrified. Taking a step back as court officials immediately turned towards Depp and put their hands up, warning him to stay away. To make matters worse, moments before that, Heard had been testifying about Depp assaulting her with a bottle and threatening to take her life. So clearly emotions were running very high. During Heard's testimony, Depp was not paying attention, doodling and writing in a notebook. And at number 8, posed while on the stand. Another moment that's going viral online shows Amber Heard posing for a photo while on the stand. While she was talking about the time in her relationship when Johnny was detoxing, she had a tissue to her face and held it there until she saw the flash of a camera taking a picture. Even crazier, if you watch the whole clip, you can see that she doesn't even use this tissue, making it clear the whole thing was just for show. Body language expert Dr. Lillian Glass agrees, saying, quote, "Yes, she posed for sure. She had no liquid in her eyes or nose, and she never blew her nose, just put the Kleenex to her nose and kept it there. She snuck a peek at the camera to make sure they had the shot." Obviously, things like this do not make Amber Heard look good, and it makes it seem like she's doing everything possible to get good press. And at number 7, stole lines from the talented Mr. Ripley. Another claim that went wild on social media was that Amber Heard copied the main stories from her testimony from TV shows and movies. At one point, a side-by-side comparison of her transcript compared to the script from the talented Mr. Ripley was posted on Twitter, making it seem like she copied the movie script word for word. But when you actually compare the lines from the movie and what Amber said, you can see that it's not a direct copy like it was claimed. If anything, the storytelling is very similar, but that could just be a coincidence. Depending on what side you're on in this case, you'll probably see what you want to see, but it's not nearly as compelling as the internet made it seem before. And at number 6, inconsistencies in her story. Since the internet is mostly on Johnny Depp's side in things, after Amber Heard took the stand, the internet immediately started dissecting her testimony. Viral TikToks even show people acting out her retelling of events, and it makes literally no sense. In one TikTok, the audio hears Amber claiming that she was sitting on the edge of a couch, then she says how she was on the floor looking at how dirty the rug is, painting the picture that her version of events makes no sense. A tweet breaking down another event said, quote, "I walked out of the bedroom and he slapped me in the face. I turned around to face him and I said, 'Johnny, you just hit me.'" The user pointed out that you can't be slapped by someone and then turn around to face them. Halfway at number 5, forces herself to cry. While Amber was on the stand, she was talking about some very traumatic moments in her past and getting somewhat emotional. At some points it looked like she was getting over-emotional in an attempt to make herself cry. For the longest time it did not work, and she looked like she was in pain trying to get herself to cry for the jury. Many online were joking that it was the best acting performance she'd given in her life. And at number 4, ACLU donation. One of the worst cases of Amber Heard lying is in regards to her donations to the ACLU, since it's so easy to get to the truth. During her divorce proceedings, Amber went on record stating that she would donate the proceeds from her divorce to Children's Hospital of LA and the ACLU within 10 years. During the recent trial, the ACLU says that she gave them less than half of her $3.5 million pledge. An executive from the company, Terrence Doherty, said that the nonprofit received 4 donations in Amber's name so far, totaling only $1.3 million. Only $350,000 from her directly. Johnny Depp then wrote a check for $100,000, and Amber Heard asked for that money to be credited to her. The organization also says other payments included $500,000 from a donor-advised fund at Vanguard and $350,000 from a donor-advised fund at Fidelity. The ACLU believes a large portion of this money came from Elon Musk, Heard's former boyfriend. And at number 3, Heard copying Depp's outfits. One strange thing that's been noticed during the trial is that Amber seems to copy Johnny's outfits in court. Dr. Shannon Curry took the witness stand and testified that she diagnosed Amber Heard with 2 personality disorders, and one could cause her to mimic her ex-husband Johnny Depp's wardrobe choices. Dr. Curry claimed that Amber's disorder may cause her to, quote, take on the identity of the people they are spending time with because it's comforting. At that point, fans already started to notice that she was copying Depp's outfits, with some believing it's a tactic to intimidate him. Many fans on Twitter are pointing out the strange coincidence, pointing out how Heard will copy the color and style of whatever Depp wears the next day. And at number 2, hides a water bottle. There might not be anything wrong with this one, but it's definitely strange. So while Amber Heard is in court, she's talking to her lawyers, and then she goes to unscrew a water bottle. Pretty normal stuff. But then one of the courtroom cops comes over and walks by, and for some reason Amber quickly screws the cap back on and hides it in her jacket pocket. This bizarre moment is leading some to believe that the contents of the bottle were definitely not water. The caption on the video read, quote, Amber Heard and her deeply sus moment in court with her water bottle. And finally, number 1, hid a smile. There have been a few moments in court that have just not seemed to add up. A few involve Amber Heard laughing or hiding a smile either while she is testifying or while Johnny Depp is. A body language expert did an entire 30-minute video on this topic, breaking down one specific moment where Amber Heard's facade cracked, and she showed her true emotion. In the thumbnail he wrote, quote, one smile exposed her. In the intro clip we see Johnny recalling a moment with Amber and he says, quote, it just didn't happen. As the camera pans to Amber, we see a brief smirk that she quickly conceals. The expert notes in the video that he believes she bit the inside of her cheek to conceal the smile. She then blocks her mouth as a reflex to again hide her emotion. The expert continues that it's shocking that she would decide to laugh in that moment when she sees her former partner breaking down on the stand. And at number 10, uphill battle for Johnny Depp. According to Dr. Jill Huntley-Taylor, a legal analyst and the CEO of Taylor Trial Consulting, there are many challenges in this case. The first is determining what is the truth. Jurors must be convinced whether Depp was physical with Heard or not. Quote, if jurors conclude that this was a mutually abusive relationship, some may see her op-ed as technically correct. However, other jurors may believe what Heard wrote was only a half-truth and therefore deceptive. The other challenge is the Washington Post op-ed. Not only does Johnny have to prove her accounts were not true, he also needs to prove a certain amount of malice on her part. Taylor continued, quote, the testimony that she initially wanted his name included in the op-ed may suggest malice, but the timing prior to her movie release may also suggest her real motive was to benefit herself. She assumes that jurors will conclude there was physical violence on both sides of the marriage. Taylor also believes the Me Too movement will benefit Heard, as women are more inclined to be believed over men. Taylor also predicted that Heard's lawyers would attempt to discredit every story from Depp by highlighting his substance addictions and out-of-control lifestyle. Taylor concluded, quote, this is a case of a toxic relationship and no one is coming out of it unscathed, regardless of whether money changes hands. But Depp's charisma might help him slightly. And at number 9, mutual violence the most likely conclusion. This case is a whole lot of he said, she said, and in the end it comes down to whether one or both parties put hands on each other. Dr. Darcy Sterling, a relationship therapist and clinical social worker, told Entertainment Weekly that she believes mutual abuse will be the likely answer for the jury, continuing that if a person only used physicality to defend themselves, the term should not be used, but she stated that this type of behavior is generally shown by both partners. Sterling adds, quote, both partners were egregious in their behaviors, and neither seems to realize their culpability. Things are always easier to make sense of when one person is clearly a victim and the other is a perpetrator. Adding, quote, in my 27 years of practicing as a therapist, the vast majority of relationships I've seen show problems in both partners. And at number 8, both in the wrong. Attorney John Katz has a direct view of the Fairfax County Courthouse in Virginia from his office, and he's watching the proceedings closely, not only for entertainment as he claims it's the biggest case he's seen in the last 20 years, but for any legal precedent that might come of the decision. Katz does mainly free speech work, so he's interested to see how far Amber Heard's claims will be protected by free speech, although he believes that no party will be the clear winner. When speaking about the case, Katz said, quote, I want a verdict against both of them. And at number 7, case unlikely to set precedent. UCLA law professor Eugene Volokh chimed in on if he believes the case will be interesting to First Amendment scholars. He stated that he doesn't believe it will make any noticeable impact on the law at large. Several experts believe this will not become a landmark case in the history of defamation law. It will mainly be remembered for its shocking revelations. Professor Volokh said, quote, it seems like a pretty basic libel claim. It's all about the facts. I haven't seen anything that would actually affect the law. And at number 6, will have minimal impact on media outlets. Attorney Jack Browning from Davis Wright Tremaine LLP, who represents media clients including the New York Post and Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, says he's not worried about this verdict making any significant change for his media clients. He believes the case is a one-off and is unique to the industry. He continued, quote, "Will this case be broadly applicable to clients in the media? It's not obvious that it will." Browning states the case is more to do with the Me Too movement and spousal battery than the media. In short, the couple is relitigating their divorce in public. Quote, "This lawsuit was brought for Johnny to win the court of public opinion. He's using the courts as a platform to have his side heard, but there's a strong consensus that neither side will come out of this unscathed." Halfway number 5, power dynamics might hurt Depp. Dr. Ziv Cohen, a psychiatrist and head physician, offered an opinion on the power dynamics in the court, stating that even though partners might be mutually responsible for violence, if there's another imbalance in the relationship, it can change the dynamics of the abuse. These power imbalances in the relationship can be due to strength, wealth, status, intelligence, etc. Cohen continues, quote, "It's possible that the more powerful person has vulnerabilities, such as emotional dependence on the partner, which would lead the more powerful person to be exploited." Dr. Cohen believes that Depp's charm in court might have gained sympathy from jurors, but his detrimental lifestyle habits could have a large effect. Dr. Cohen agreed, saying, quote, "The jurors may have been alienated by these unflattering elements of his personality and find it hard to accept that he was truly damaged by Heard, as opposed to behaving in a self-destructive manner for which he is now assigning blame." In at number 4, public relations nightmare. Daniel Guttenplan, an entertainment litigator, defamation expert and partner at Eisenstein Pham and Glass, told People his thoughts on the trial, saying that at this point, the trial has much less to do with the law than image, and it spiraled into a PR battle, saying, quote, "There's been a lot of dirty laundry aired in public. Clearly Johnny feels he has very little left to lose, and he has no problem publishing to the world at large, frankly, his innermost secrets, and those of Ms. Heard." Guttenplan also pointed out some flaws in Depp's case, asking why he's apologizing to Ms. Heard if he did nothing wrong. He also finds it unfavorable that he's not able to look at Ms. Heard in court and avoids eye contact at all costs. About the competing mid-trial statements, Guttenplan says that, quote, "Both camps are trying to control the narrative as best they can." Guttenplan also shared why he believes Heard has the upper hand. Quote, "Johnny is the plaintiff, so he needs to prove that there was no harm done whatsoever. Heard just needs to establish in theory that she was abused, which is much easier." And at number 3, the break will help Amber. The explosive trial is on pause this week as the judge had a pre-scheduled conference that was incorporated into the schedule. This breakup could potentially help Amber Heard a lot, as the jury got to hear Amber Heard's testimony before the break, and the pause took place before Heard was able to be cross-examined, meaning her statements are ringing in the ears of the jurors, and Depp's team won't be able to pick her apart until next week. NBC News legal analyst Danny Savello said, quote, "That's the kind of thing lawyers worry about all the time, and sometimes you get bad luck. This is a significant break and people are going to marinate in it," Heard's testimony. Since Heard's testimony was so graphic and detailed, it's impossible that it wouldn't have sunk into the minds of the jury. And at number 2, Depp's side is concerned about the gap. LA jury consultant Richard Gabriel agreed with the above statements that this break gives Heard's side of things a huge advantage, saying about the gap, quote, "What we hear last really does stick with us. Instead of moving on to something else like another witness and focusing on that, jurors will sit for more than a week with Heard's testimony. It's a common practice in trial to always have the advantage of speaking before breaks, and commonly lawyers will pace the trial to ensure that they win some sort of battle before an afternoon coffee break, weekend adjournment, or week-long gap. Leaving jurors with a feeling that your side won that portion of the day is powerful when it comes down to deliberation." Continuing, quote, "It's not a wash, it does favor her. Timing of trials is very important. When you introduce things, who gets to go last, who speaks before a weekend, all that stuff matters." Even worse, Depp's team was gaining so much momentum against her in the beginning, and over time the jury will forget those initial feelings in his favor. And finally at number 1, Heard's emotional testimony may sway critics. Since we listened to Depp's side of things in the beginning of the trial, the internet was on his side, clearly believing what he had to say. But after Heard finally took the witness stand, something that was not guaranteed, some of her critics might have started to soften. Depp was on the stand for 4 days, accusing Heard of being the aggressor in their relationship. Then before the break, we heard 2 days of Amber telling her side of the story, explaining how they were deeply in love, but because of Johnny's issues with anger and substance misuse, he spiraled out of control and became violent. Depending on how she's able to stick to her story during the cross-examination, she could put some serious doubts in the minds of the jury that Johnny was physical at some point during their relationship, even if they believe Heard was the instigator. Southern California civil attorney Ryan Baker said, quote, "Her testimony was quite compelling. Even if you're not a fan of Amber Heard and you're biased towards Johnny Depp, she has presented some fairly detailed, emotional, strong testimony. It's hard to imagine that testimony won't be bouncing around the heads of jurors at the expense of the prior evidence."